Hi. Okay. So I'm going to be doing something a little different. I am going to, in the month of June, so I have a couple of, ugh, I'm all over the place because I moved and I want to do a couple of story times. But for my YouTube, there okay, let me start over. I have so much going on. But for my YouTube, my focus was to really do some meditation videos and affirmation videos. And I was trying to do like twice a month videos. But with my move, there's just been so much going on. And to be a mom and um try to take care of my baby and also working, and it is just like a lot. Maybe I overcommitted. I don't know. Those of you who are moms who are trying to do it all and also trying to like have time for yourself, I don't know. Tell me how you're doing it because I don't know how I'm doing it. I'm trying to figure it out. But I thought it might be good to I did my career coaching versus life coaching video, and I thought that might be good because people don't necessarily know the difference. And I thought it might be good to share. And I thought it might be good to do a few more videos about myself too. And I am in this new space. I did at the beginning of the year a video of reset, which um, is kind of interesting because at the beginning of the year, I usually do a whole um, like I do all these rituals for resetting, and I charge my crystals, and like I do a lot of like moon work. So for my podcast, I'm going to start to incorporate some of the coaching. I've been doing moon work for like maybe like 10 years or so. It's been a long time. But I usually keep career stuff separate than my spiritual stuff. And now I am going to start to bring them together a little bit. I don't know if I want to do this like forever. I think I want to try it out and see how it goes. Um and just, play with it a little bit. But with coaching, there is a little bit of an overlap. So it does make sense for me. And I very much like to work in law of attraction and manifesting. And I think at least here in LA, the LA area is very much, manifesting and a lot of like hippie dippy stuff. So if you're not into that stuff, I get it. That's not for everybody. But I have had my own experiences with it, and that's why I am very much a believer, maybe if you want to call that. But I wanted to go into some story times because I have some examples of why, for me, like the spirituality piece of manifesting has worked, and what it has done for me, and how in some situations, like, I didn't even know what I was doing. So for the month of June, I am going to be doing a full the month of June in 2026. May has two full moons. So the beginning of May actually is the first full moon, and I'm pre-recording this, so we'll see what happens by June. I don't know what's going to be going on, but by the end of May is the second full moon, and June actually starts. The moon goes so it goes through a full cycle and ends in a full moon. So it goes all the way through a new moon and then builds back up into a full moon. So you're starting the first of the month and then you're ending the end of the month in a full moon. And so I wanted to bring in the podcast and really kind of bring it together, because in manifesting with the new moon and the full moon, there is a lot of work and spirituality and rituals that you can bring into moon practices. And for me as a career coach, I specifically focus on like the career elements of it. But I want to kind of do June moon focus, and really kind of just talk about how um we can just get into some history of the moon and like how the moon was used in farming, and especially for those of you who are new with like how m- moon farming works and like why the moon was used, and like just there's a lot of like um spirituality even with my husband who's Indian. Like there's some uh cultural elements that are connected to it too. So I want to bring some of that into my episodes and then tie it into how can we use the moon to look for jobs. How can we use the moon to interview? How can we use the moon to promote? Like, I want to break it all down. So, June is coming and we're going to do all of that. I'm going to drop this YouTube video probably at the beginning of June, or maybe the end of May. I don't know yet, but it'll be just a YouTube video. And yeah, but for this video, I really specifically want to focus on one of my manifesting stories and how I actually didn't really know what law of attraction was, and I didn't know what I was doing until I had a friend who was telling me about it. And she kind of connected all the pieces for me. But when I first started manifesting, I didn't know what I was doing. And she kind of told me like she was putting language to what I was doing. And later I connected the pieces. Oh, I have manifested. And then later I went back and reflected on the first time that I believe and I'm sure I've manifested other things before this and just didn't know. Um, and, and I think like this example is something that I like to go back to because it was a true example of like advancement. And for me, it was really powerful because it was like a life-changing moment where I I had no idea what I was doing and I manifested like a true change into my life. So, um yeah, and it wasn't years later that I realized what I did. So, I'm going to go back many years to okay, we're going to go back to college because well, okay, so let me go backwards before that and just say growing up, I always knew for me, I was, um, as you know, I was adopted through foster care. So for me, I always felt like I have this purpose in life, don't always know what it is, don't always know what I'm meant for, but I feel like I'm meant for something else. And, I always had like this internal driven mindset, like, oh my goodness, I'm going to be doing something with myself, something with my life. I didn't know what, but I also have like this dreamy side of me that's like in the clouds, a little bit in the clouds. So I can't, I, I sometimes will live in the clouds, and especially when I was younger, I wouldn't really always be able to get things off the ground. And then later, as I got older, I kind of figured out a way to I started to get really good at school. Probably in junior high was when I was like, okay, I can apply myself and I can do well and I can get good grades and I can figure that out. And then in high school, I started dancing and I was really focused on that. And probably actually with dancing is like probably where I really started manifesting things and I didn't realize it because I was very high school is when I really tapped into creativity. I was dancing and I was playing music and I was in drama and I was artsy. Like I was just doing a lot, a lot of creative stuff. So that was probably like the main creative outlet. Now I realize, okay, I have to channel the creativity to be productive, but I didn't realize what I was doing at that time. So anyway, moving forward. Okay, so then going into college, I struggled. I will say from high school into college, I actually had my first year into college was very difficult. I had a lot of health issues. And we'll talk about this. I will have another video where I'm just kind of going into some of the traumas because as an adult now, like I recognize that there were a lot of trauma experiences that I had as a child and as a teenager that I didn't understand that that's what was happening. I didn't understand that was trauma. I didn't understand um those are things that I was dealing with and until now. Um as an adult that I recognize now was trauma and they weren't good things and I didn't understand that. And I think for me, I suppressed a lot of things by by doing dance, by doing focusing on music, by focusing on school. I was distracting myself with all these other things and suppressing a lot of this trauma because I was trying to survive. And I didn't know that until now. But at the time, all I was trying to do was get out of my hometown. I was just trying to get out of my hometown. So I really focused on doing well in school and um, I wanted to get out. And so I did. I got myself out of my hometown and I went to a four-year university and my health plummeted. I was already dealing with health things while I was in high school. And then when I moved to college that first year, the first year of college is already very challenging because it is a culture shock when you go and you live on your own, which it was. It was such a culture shock for me, but also like I wasn't able to manage my health appropriately. And, you're living with a bunch of strangers and other kids who don't, kids are mean. I mean, they're adults, but they're also kids. Kids are mean. And I dealt with a lot of racial issues and just different, I think, me now, looking back, I realize growing up, I really never felt like I fit in because I didn't, um, I don't feel like I looked like other kids. I grew up with a white mom, but I know I'm not white. And being adopted, I knew like I wasn't white, but I also, I'm very mixed. And so it was hard for me to identify with any one group of kids. And I know now, like looking back, I'm like, oh, I floated around I never felt like I fit in with one group of kids because I just didn't feel like I fit in anywhere. Like I wanted to be with everybody because I felt like I didn't really belong with any one group. It was hard for me to feel like I could fit with anybody because I didn't really fit with anybody. And now, like, I see that, like, part of me feels like I'm everything and nothing. And it is confusing. And now I'm like, oh, well, it's because I'm so multiracial. Makes sense. But at the time as a kid, you were like, huh. And in college, you're really trying to find yourself and your identity. And especially when you really don't know. And at that time in college, I didn't have any DNA testing or genetics and I didn't know. I didn't know my racial background. I didn't know a lot of stuff. And so I didn't know how to talk about my adoption. I didn't know how to talk about being in foster care. I didn't know how to talk about um, a lot of that stuff. And so I didn't know how to talk about my health issues because I didn't know how to explain them. I didn't know how to explain, I think sometimes that some of my health issues came from trauma, partly because I didn't know. And even now I know that some of those things came from trauma. And so it was really hard for me, and I did not do well that first year of college. I was doing well in some classes. Actually, I didn't. When I think back and I think of my grades, I think there was only one class I didn't do well in. But for the most part, like I did pretty good in my classes. But ended up having a seizure in class because that was part of my health issues, and it scared me. Which at 18 years old, when you don't know what's going on with you and you don't know what's going on with your body, it's understandable that you're scared and you don't know what's happening. So I felt like because I couldn't manage the stress of everything and I didn't understand what was happening in my body, um, I thought I was failing. So I automatically was like, okay, I have to go home. And I had, I had a good, at that time, good group of friends who were like, um, you're okay. You're going to be okay. And then I had one person who was like, you're, you're a failure. It was a very weird experience. Um, but I ended up going back home to my hometown and I decided to restart college um, and it wasn't, I already had some credits. So I ended up going from 4-year university to community college and started to like take one class at a time while I focused on figuring out my health. And that was like when I really started doing yoga and meditation because which I think was really actually very helpful in healing um, myself because I didn't realize at the time, but I was very dysregulated from a lot of the trauma I had been dealing with. I didn't know that I didn't know that was what I was dealing with. And so, taking one class at a time, trying to get myself regulated, trying to be independent and to grow up, basically. And also going back to a trauma filled environment that didn't help, but the yoga meditation did help. Um, and so I'm still trying to get myself back out of this hometown where things weren't great, but still having to be in there and trying to be independent. It was very hard and trying times. And I think the trauma was still pulling me in, and other things were still pulling me in. Other difficult relationships and difficult people in my life were pulling me back. And so I didn't know any of this at the time. All I knew was like I'm just trying to do a good job and part of me was like I'm trying to survive. So I was able to get myself to go through school through one class in time, community college. I tried again to get to another university. Unfortunately, that didn't work because of my health. I wasn't able to drive at that time. And so I couldn't make that work because that school I tried to go to was too far and I couldn't drive. And so I had to try again. And this was after I had gone to community college. I think it was another couple of years. And then I had to wait another semester so I could try to transfer one more time to a school that was closer. And it wasn't the school necessarily of my choice, but it was the school that was the closest because I needed to try to focus on figuring out how I could drive. By that time, I was like maybe 21 because I started driving when I was 21. So finally, I was able to start driving, get some independence, start to get back to school, um, get into a routine, and get myself out of some of these crazy things that were happening. I had a job. I was working, I was going to school, trying to put myself through school. A lot going on. Again, I will get through some of these trauma things later because that I think is a big part of my story, but it's not a part of my story right now because right now we're focusing on the time I didn't realize that I uh, use law of attraction and I didn't know. So anyway, I'm saying all this to get to the place where I ended up getting to go to my college where out of all the things that happened in this whole story, I ended up going to this college that I loved. My experience there was so great. I was loving the connections I was making. I was loving the people I was building relationships with. I ended up becoming an RA, which maybe that's a time I attracted that and didn't realize it because I wasn't living on campus. I was living off campus and I applied to be an RA because I thought it would be a really great job. And I wanted to live on campus so that I didn't have to drive. But also like I thought it'd be a really cool job. Little did I know that that job was what my first, to me, real HR experience before getting into the HR world, because there's so much HR in being an RA. It's like the foundation of becoming an HR person. And so like maybe that's really what, and I got that job like randomly. I remember going to an orientation and there was nobody at the orientation except for me. I was the only one. And I was like so excited to be there, and they had to give the orientation. It was just me. And I was like, yeah, I'm so excited to do this. I'm so interested. And I'm like just excited to be there. And I didn't even live on campus. But it was great. Like it was, getting that job was such a life changer, that it helped set, I think, the future, because being able to, I was able to get that job. I remember interviewing and thinking like, I don't know if I did a good job here. It was the most intense interview. I had to do that orientation. I had to do um a group interview where there were multiple, I think there was like 25 of us interviewing at the same time, which is crazy. So we had to do a lot of group activities, and it was fun. It was like a whole day of interviewing. It was crazy. But it's because there was so much teamwork that had to happen in the job. But and I remember actually in my group and the table, I think almost all of us got hired except for maybe one person at that table. So I was in a good group, I think. But yeah, it was an intense interview. I remember also doing a panel interview where it was me and there was like 4 or 5 people interviewing me at the same time, and that was scary. But I tried my best. I prepared so much. So getting that job felt like it was the best thing ever. And it just changed my life. I think getting that job meant so much to me. I um loved being an RA. I loved my residents. I loved being like, I think it was also one of my first coaching type of roles, because I love to be one on one with my residents, and talking to them about future jobs, like mentoring them, talking to them about roommate problems, and just being there to support them in their issues that they were having, listening to them and encouraging them. It just really changed my life. And I think now, even being an RA is like, it really was like HR/social work. Like what I was doing was all of that. Um, and I remember being in that job, and I also, going to that school got me connected to, um, who I consider now as one of my dear mentors, who also changed my life. She was doing a research project she was actually in her PhD program and writing her dissertation, and she was interviewing um, individuals who were first generation college students. And part of her dissertation, she was interviewing students. It was a qualitative dissertation, and I was one of her research participants. And I was, I think part of her dissertation, she did focus on me because being a foster youth, um, there was just so much experience that got in the way of me going to school and becoming successful. And so I think she may have been very committed. And I think even now she's very committed to my success. And without her, I don't know that I would have been able to go on to grad school. Um, but she has always been in my corner. And even to this day, I know I can call her up. She's just so supportive of me. And if I didn't go to that school, I would not have been, I think, as successful to moving on to what was the next step for me. But I was so busy in my last year at my undergraduate, and I was so excited to get to go to grad school, but you apply for graduate programs in the fall. So I had become an RA and I was applying to graduate programs in the fall, and I had a huge book. I didn't know what graduate programs I wanted to go to, but I had this huge book that I think she gave me or someone had given me. Maybe I got it from her resource center or something, but um, as a mentor, she was just there every step of the way because I was living on campus and she was available to me. And so um, I would go to her and say, I want to go to grad school. And I didn't want to take a gap year. I want to go from undergrad, especially because it took me, if I look back now, it took me about 7 years to get from undergrad because there was all these other things to finishing to graduating. And that's because I had all these other things happening. So I was like focused. I want to go to grad school. And that was, looking back at it now, I was not, I was clear. I was very clear. And that's the key to law of attraction, being clear. But I was not as specific as maybe I could have been. And that's okay. That's okay. But I was clear. I want to go to grad school and I didn't want to take a gap year. I was really just wanting to go be done with my undergrad, graduate, and then go straight to grad school. And that was my path. I just wanted to do that. And I wasn't thinking about anything else. I remember thinking about going and applying to figuring out what programs. I had decided on social work, and this was through conversations I had with my mentor because my undergrad was in communication and I had a focus on business communication. And I thought at the time social work would be a good path because just growing up in a foster home, I just thought, okay, I can use the communication skills and become a social worker and help other foster kids at the time. And my mentor had said, well, if you decide that you don't want to go down that traditional path, social work can also take you down these other non-traditional paths. So it might be a good option for you. And I like that. I like that I would have that flexibility. Little did I know I end up taking the non-traditional path, but whatever. I did decide that, okay, well, social work is it. So I focused on a few schools that I wanted to focus on. Initially, I was globally focused. And then I decided, okay, that's a little bit too much. My mom's getting older. Don't want to go too far out of the country because if she needs help, I don't want to be too far away from her. And I was single at the time. So for me, I was like, I don't want to get too far away from her. Then I decided, okay, I'm going to be just in the United States. So I was looking at, the whole United States. So I was looking at New York, East Coast schools. I was looking throughout the country. Then I said, okay, I'm going to get narrow. And I decided, okay, I can't go that far because again, my mom's older. If she needs anything, I can't be too far. So I'm going to just kind of keep it to the West Coast. I decided on a few schools that I applied to. The biggest school, probably the most expensive school I focused on was USC. And I thought, okay, that's the school I really want to go to, but I don't know if I can do it. It's really expensive. It's a private university and it's very, very competitive. I don't think I'm going to get in. But I just focused on USC because at that time when I was applying, I kind of was like, it's all or nothing. I did not have a backup plan. I was just focused on it. Didn't even I didn't even think about putting a backup plan. I didn't think about applying for jobs. I didn't think about putting anything else in place. I literally just focused on USC. And at that time, because I didn't know what I was doing, I didn't know about law of attraction. I didn't know about, um, specific tools I could use to manifest or actions I could take. I wasn't doing any of that. I was just solely focused with I had tunnel vision. I was literally just USC, USC. And I was just going through my list of everything I could do to get into USC. Everything I could do. I can network here. I can go to this event here. I can meet that person there. I can go to this orientation here. And that's all. Like, that's all I was doing. And my biggest goal was that at the end of the day, if I get into that school, the network I could tap into will be infinite and well connected and it will get me a job. That was why I wanted to go there. It didn't it was no other reason. Like, I knew that I would be able to get connected, have a job, and like, it would save me. That's really what I was thinking. If I had a job that paid well, I would be saved. Um, I would be saved from my hometown. I would be saved by having money, and I wouldn't have to deal with some of the things that I was dealing with at the time still. And every step I took further away from my hometown and some of the things I was dealing with, the more saved I was getting. And that's how I was feeling. And so I was so focused on that, that I did not make a backup plan. I did not think about anything else. All I thought about that. And that was 4 months. I had started applying in the fall. So that was like September, October, whatever. I met all my deadlines. I did everything I need to do. Everyone knew I was applying. And, I was doing all my other stuff. I was working as an RA. I was doing what I had to do. I was going to classes, doing all my other stuff. And then the spring came and I started to panic as spring came because I realized, oh, I actually don't have a backup plan. I had friends who started getting the winter was coming. It was December. It slowed down. Nothing was really going on. And, it felt like Harry Potter because during winter break, I was, staying on campus. I was one of the few RAs staying on campus, and there was like nobody there. And it was kind of like a ghost town, but I was by myself, like a few other RAs and like a few people who had nowhere else to go. But that's just how it was. That was my home. And so, I was able to get through it and take a little bit of a break, but I was still like really focused and thinking like, okay, is there anything else I can do? That's all I can do. It was like, now I just gotta wait. So I'm in my head thinking I'm waiting and there's nothing else I can do, but I was just so focused on it. And now I gotta focus on school. I'm gonna, just focus on school. So as the next semester comes up, um, things start to slowly go into classes, and I start to realize that we're having conversations about people are starting to get their notifications. I think end of February, beginning of March, people are getting their notifications that they've been accepted. And I'm starting to have people question me, oh, well, do you have a job? Are you looking for jobs? Are you applying? And at that time, we're going to be graduating in May. So it's not a lot of time. If I need to apply for a job, I'm going to have to do it then because I didn't have a backup plan and I did not plan to work during the summer. I just didn't know. I was thinking I was going to just go straight to school. I really had no backup plan. So I started to panic. I remember going to, at the time, another mentor, I would say, of mine is our vice president of student affairs. He, I had set up a meeting with him, and I remember going to his office and saying, I set up a meeting, and I think I cried in his office. Um, And I think this was before I was starting to panic. I was right at the beginning of panic because at this time too, I had been in school 7 years and I had so focused and I think it was right around my birthday time and I was right about to be 25. And I was having like this quarter life crisis. I was feeling like, oh my gosh, I don't know what's next for me. I did not plan. I had only planned for grad school. Like that was what I was going to do. And I don't know what's next. And he was basically telling me, it's going to be okay. You're going to figure it out. Like, take a breath. And I'm sure I'm going to see you soon. Like, you're going to be okay. And I'm like, I know you're right, but I don't know. I'm telling him I don't know. And sure enough, after all these panics happen, I'm hearing all these stories from everyone else. The panic and this freak out moment is actually a sign in law of attraction and in manifesting. That is a sign when something good is going to happen. And at the time, I definitely didn't know this, but now know and recognize, like, when you feel that, when it feels tense and it feels scary and it feels like like there is no other way, and you've been so focused on one thing, that's a sign when something good is going to happen. You're coming up to the end, that if yeah, the end of the hard time, and it doesn't feel good like that. It doesn't feel like that's what's going to happen, but that is the sign. So, um, I the timing of it ends up being kind of weird because I think it was just a couple weeks later. I remember being working and being in the office. I had a shift on duty where I had to work in the office as an RA. You have um, different assignments where you have to walk the halls, you have to be on call, you have to be in the office and clock in for that. So there's different assignments that you have. And I had an office shift, and in that office shift, I got mail, and one of somebody else who was working in the office at the time. I don't remember if it was my resident. It might have been my resident. If you're listening to this and you remember who it was, let me know. But somebody, I opened the mail and I remember I got a piece of mail and it was from USC. And I opened it and I read it. And as soon as I read it, I just started crying. And the person sitting next to me had to grab the mail and read it for me. And they were like, "You got accepted. Why are you crying?" And I'm like, "Because," like, they didn't understand how excited I was, because that is all I had focused on. I was just focused on that. And it was such a relief. And it was like I knew how much that was going to change my life. Now, I didn't think about the other things that it was gonna come with, but after that, it just all came together, like, receiving that. And I remember being in the office and everyone there that was there was, like, excited for me, jumping for joy. Um, our big boss was in there and he was, like, playing his guitar. I just remember everyone was just so excited and I was crying because I couldn't believe it, that I all I had done was just focus on that. And I believe I applied for a couple other schools, but I didn't care about the other schools. I just wanted that school. Those schools that might have been a backup, but it wasn't even, I don't even remember them because I was so focused on USC and that's all I cared about. I was so tunnel vision that all I did was I didn't make room for anything else. I only made room for this school. I only made effort for this school. I did everything I could, just focus on this school, because that's all I wanted. Now, did I think about um the fact that it was going to be expensive and I didn't have money or scholarship or anything like that? No, because I wasn't specific. But did I manifest getting into this school? Absolutely. I totally did. I totally attracted that and I totally made that happen for myself. And then after that, it just became a bunch of validation. There were leadership awards, so that I met with that vice president of student affairs after going into his office and letting him know I got in. I had just been in his office crying and he said it was all going to be okay. And he was right. And I had just let him know, I got in, I made it in. And he was so proud of me. And I remember him at a leadership award telling the story to everyone. And my friends were telling me about it because I was working that night, so I wasn't at that leadership award. And then later, I ended up getting an award. I should have it here, and maybe I should post up there because I got ARIA of the Year award that year too. And I was just on such a high because I was so excited, and I was living in these really high vibrational energy levels. I just was in this place of like complete bliss and excitement, and um everything felt like it was working in my favor, and it felt very much aligned, like I was supposed to get in and I was supposed to go in that direction. It felt like things were happening for me so I could go down that path and go down that direction. And absolutely, it changed my life. I got into that school, I moved to LA, and I ended up getting my degree in social work. Um and like beyond that, so many other things have happened since then that I've manifested or have come together and have all made sense. And sometimes at the time it doesn't make sense, but for me, looking back, I can really look back on that example and say that was the first time I really truly manifested something. Didn't know that that's what I was doing at the time, but I can really pull back the fact that I felt it. I felt that I was so focused on just um manifesting. Well, I didn't know I was manifesting, but I was so focused on the fact that I just wanted to get into that school and I felt it every day. That's all I wanted. And I lived in that every day. And then I even had the feeling of panic when it wasn't happening. And then in the end, when it did happen, it was like the best feeling ever. Like it was supposed to happen for me. So it was when I let go, because was in, um, I was in that vice president of student affairs office saying, "Oh, I don't know if it's going to happen." And I was at that point where I was letting it go, thinking like, I don't think this is going to happen. I might have to come up with a backup plan. And then right after that is when I got the news that I got the acceptance letter. So that order of events also is really important and pivotal to the law of attraction and manifesting too. So it all happened in such a crazy way and in the order it's supposed to, but it all happened. So that was my story. I hope that gives you some insights to my advancement and how law of attraction has really worked in my favor and has done something for me when I didn't even know it was working. And now that I am much more aware how I can use things like um feeling the feelings of what I want in manifestation or manifesting, using things like just true focus, using things like letting go, um using things like gratitude, um all those things can really help as tools to manifesting. I try to apply those as much as I can when I'm trying to manifest. So, anyway, I hope that was a helpful story. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want more stories like that, let me know. But I have other stories again, like I know that I touched on the trauma stuff. And if you're curious about hearing about that, I will be sharing. But some of that stuff is very heavy. Um, so I will absolutely have to do some trigger warnings because growing up in a foster home is a lot. As an adult, I see that now, but there's been many times in my life where I just didn't connect those things and didn't understand, and now I do. So I want to be mindful about how I'm sharing some of that stuff um, to anyone who's listening. I want to be careful and respectful and thoughtful. But also, I hope, some of that stuff can help people. But anyway, I hope that if you're here and you're into career advancement stuff and this was helpful for you and you're curious about how the spirituality can come together with career advancement, you're in the right place. And I'm hoping I can teach more of that because I've seen it happen for me and I hope to bring more of this together. And I'm curious to see what this can be like. So I'm going to continue to play with it and excited for my June moon month. I don't know what I'm going to call it, but I'm excited for that because it'll be a fun time. We are going to play with the moon in June and see how that goes. But anyway, I will see you next time. Bye, guys.